Oh my goodness, that was awesome. Ha! So, what I know is that there isn't any such thing as rejection. There isn't any such thing as God messing up. And that whole thing of God's pointing us in another direction. That is such an important thing to pay attention to. That's why this month we're talking about listening to our hearts. That's why this Sunday we're talking about the path made clear. Now, a path gets clear because it has nice, strong boundaries on the side. Some of us need little bumper rails in order to stay on the path. Some of us just need a little, row of lights or maybe some pretty rocks on the side. But it is this path and these signs that help us keep moving toward, keep moving toward the only destination that there is, which is here in the heart of God. So I love it when I find these serendipitous little signs, these little signposts. And sometimes I don't recognize them at first. This Sunday, the two signposts that are keeping me on the path are the fact that it's Memorial Day and Eid al-Fitr. So Eid Mubarak to my Islamic friends, to our Islamic friends, and a good Memorial Day to our brothers and sisters in the Christ consciousness who have stepped forward to offer their lives and paid that price during a time of war. Actually, I was not able to find evidence that it has to be during a time of war. Those who made their transition while in military service, I believe, are also being honored. It's very interesting when you pull these two things together because Memorial Day, it's a purely American holiday. Nobody else is going to be out decorating gravestones for our soldiers. It's always the last Monday of May. It's honoring men and women. And the stories about how it all started are diverse. Some say that it started, actually, the government would tell you it started in 1966 when it was declared that Waterloo, New York was the official birthplace of Memorial Day. Originally, it was actually called Decoration Day because that's when people would go out to the cemeteries and decorate the graves of their family or any soldier. And I always thought it started in the South. So I was kind of tickled when I saw that there is a story that says about a month after the Confederacy surrendered in 1865, a group of freed slaves in Charleston, South Carolina, are attributed by some with having started this tradition. They went out to decorate the graves, to honor and thank the people who died for their freedom specifically. And it just became the beginning of a healing, I hope. So what I know is that these very, very disparate sides, these very, very, there really was no time in American history where we were so divided. Even now, we are not in civil war. So brother fighting against brother. And so as we remember that, as we join with those freed slaves in saying no more, part of that is recalling that no matter where any of us fall, no matter what hill we choose to die on, there is an honoring of the sacrifice. There is a coming together in hard times in order to celebrate each other and to celebrate a dedication to truth, whatever our little t truth might be. The other thing that's going on is Eid al-Fitr. I'm not saying it will fit her. Id means the celebration. It is the celebration of the end of the month of Ramadan. And to give you a general idea, it's kind of like a month-long Christmas air where people are joined together in this shared faith, shared experience. And what they're doing, what Islam is doing, and the people who practice it are doing, is celebrating that the angel Gabriel gave to the prophet, peace and blessings upon him, these words that became the beginning, at least, of the Quran. Now, the miracle is that the prophet at the time could neither read nor write. He was kind of an outcast, or at least one of the lower rungs of society, because his father was dead, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's very, there's fascinating stuff about him. So basically, then he hears this voice while he's off in a cave somewhere, in his spiritual practice. He hears this voice, and it's usually translated as he hears recite. Now he starts writing it down. So sometimes it's more like take dictation. But he writes down these words, and they become the miracle that is the center of the Islamic faith, which is the Holy Quran. In modern times, this is a month-long celebration of oneness. It is a month-long choice to be compassionately in oneness with the least, the quote-unquote least among us. This is why during this month of Ramadan, people do not eat or drink water, or there's a whole bunch of other prohibitions. But from sun up to sundown, basically they're fasting, and they are taking their attention from the outer world and bringing it into their spiritual world. They are spending more time in prayer. They're spending more time hanging out with their families. They are spending more time doing a lot of charitable work. It is interesting to me that Spirit should choose to put Ramadan into these months when we are all in isolation, and there are so many people who need that support right now. It's almost like Spirit said, well, you know, I need to make a little viewpoint or a pullover site over here where we can have the hands free from doing our normal everyday work, so that the children of Muhammad can come, of Abraham can come together and take care of each other. So this is the month in which most people do charitable contributions, which is one of the requirements of the Islamic faith. And it actually becomes a great big communal party. No, they're not eating until after sundown, but after sundown, usually what happens is that they'll have a little meal and then go to wherever their group is meeting. They do some spiritual practice, and then they have a massive feast. And you know it's becoming a very American holiday, because they talk about how much weight they gain during Ramadan. I am happy to tell you it generally comes off right after Ramadan. The weight gain is because you're eating a large amount right before the sun comes up, and another large amount just before you go to bed. And that does bad things to your metabolism. But if you think about it, the prophet was a slave to his ignorance in many ways. We're all a slave to our ignorance. We keep getting tripped up by what we don't know, don't we? I know I find out often that, oh, by the way, you know, there was a meeting for the entire community, and I sent it out via Constant Contact, and about half of it went to your junk mail folders. And so I started getting phone calls from a few people, and the rest just told me later, no, they never got the announcement. So I am asking you, please check your junk mail and because most email thingies, I am so not into technology this morning. Most email programs are going to take any group email and call it spam. So you need to make us one of your safe groups. And we are. But if you look at what is it that these two holidays have in common? I'm going to come back to my talk now. As I looked at each of these two holidays, what I kept hearing in the back of my mind was, and the truth shall set us free. The truth, capital T truth, the infinite truth. The truth that we all hold, no matter what side of the aisle we generally live on. The truth sets us free. And so Memorial Day is an honoring of those who chose to stand in the truth for freedom in the Civil War. And it literally set people physically free. Now, I'm not saying we don't still have a lot of work to do, but that was a major step, and I honor it. I honor the same energy which causes people to sign up for our entirely volunteer military and take the warrior's path today. The truth sets us free in that when the truth is downloaded into us, whether it becomes a book as pivotal as the Quran, or it is simply our personal truth, that is another way of being set free. Another great prophet once sang, "Free yourself of mental slavery." And so Bob Marley taught the same thing. It's these repeated things that I see as signposts. These repeated things are principles. And so the path is made clear by all of those little signposts along the way. Here's the downside, guys, because I'm going to warn you. You're the one who has to walk it. I can't walk it for you. I can't make you find your right tools to walk it. We know that there are certain spiritual tools and certain things you can try, but you're the one who has to do the work. And what you're really doing when you step onto the spiritual path and you begin doing the work is you are healing the consciousness of the entire, of all humanity, of all sentient beings. And we don't know exactly what is sentient. We're learning every day about the animals that actually have language and names, and many of them are bilingual. They speak both dog and human, or whale and human, or whatever. As we become conscious, what we're really doing is shining a light on a race consciousness. Now, I have gotten questions about why is it that this is happening? Is this the plague? Are we being punished by a very smitey type of God? No. You did not cause this. If there is something that, well, okay, you are not to blame for this. If something has gone sideways in your life, if you grew up with abuse, if you have experienced the death of a loved one, if you are experiencing any illness, you are not to blame for that. There is no way in which we will be saying, so what's in your consciousness? This is not a Capital One commercial. What we are is able to respond in a proactive and effective way, and those are the tools we teach. But I want to get rid of this idea that if you think you have strayed off the path, if you think that it doesn't look like the path that you signed up for, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. What it means is that somewhere in the race consciousness, somewhere in the human experience, a belief was taken on which you may never become conscious of. It happened way back in the midst of time. It became something that humanity believed. So humanity as a group currently believes in things like viruses. It currently believes in things like, I don't know, name anything you consider negative. It believes in things like war. It believes in things like hunger. It believes in things like, it is kind of just in the race consciousness that as we grow old, that's a bad thing somehow. I'm here to tell you that you are not at fault if there is some part of you that is buying into any of that. What you are, remember Rule 303, if you have the ability, if you have the means, then you have the responsibility. No, that's not science of mind, that's military, but here we are. If you have the means, if you know how to use these tools, if you are using these tools, then you have a responsibility to pull yourself out of that massive flow that is simply the way everybody's going. It's the race consciousness kind of keeping us asleep, keeping us hypnotized to what has to be, as if this thing called the economy can override our inherent abundant life, our inheritance of the divine good. I want you to think about this as a great big river. And in this case, what Ernest Holmes tells us is that we must daily reverse our position in what he calls the law. A whole bunch of people are believing in one thing, and the law always says yes. We have a history of believing in things like war, and that's how we settle our problems. I don't know about you, but I don't think it's working too well. At this point, we can destroy our entire building, our entire earth, multiple times over. And so I would suggest to you that if the group is believing that war is the answer, what we need to do is turn around and walk against that current. This is what Ernest Holmes meant when he said we must daily reverse our position in the law. Why daily? Have you ever gone, you're floating around out in the water and there's a bit of a current and it's taking you down the river, and you turn around and you start paddling and splashing all over the place and swimming against the current? What happens when you stop? Back you go, and you lose all of the work you have done. Now, that's not true in consciousness. You can't lose all of it. Once you have opened your mind, it can never quite shrink back into what it was. But it is, it's like being on a river. Or I've also heard it compared to being on a bicycle. If you stop pedaling, you can coast for a while, but guys, eventually you're going to fall over. And my sister would say, and I'm going to have to point and laugh and probably take pictures. I'm not going to point and laugh because I've done it too many times myself. So we have a daily spiritual practice that allows us to swim against that current and move in a new direction, against the current that says war is the answer, and into a growing group of people that says, no, I am not going to take up arms against my brothers and sisters, against children who are actually my own children, because we're one in the Christ consciousness. We can find other ways. We can stop asking our brothers and sisters in the Christ consciousness to die for our mistaken belief that somebody else has to go to war. I feel like I'm kind of babbling today, but here you are, here I am, and here's the fix. One of them, God comes in caffeinated and decaffeinated form in my house. So we come back to this spiritual practice. This is probably among the top 5 things I hear about from other people. But Reverend Kathleen, I can't meditate. I don't have time. I forget. I sit there and then it's like, oh, look, a squirrel or a chicken or whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, that is meditation. Plant your butt, sit down and get quiet, and gift yourself with just a few minutes to hear the voice of God within you. Maybe for you it is a still small voice. Maybe for you it comes in songs that get caught in your head. I promise you that last song is going to be caught in my head for a while. And that's a great thing. To be completely clear with you guys, I have struggled with the spiritual practice, the daily commitment. I've been doing this Science of Mind thing for 20 years now. And I've struggled with it. Because sometimes my spiritual practice goes stale and I just don't want to do it. Little secret, many religious scientists have a problem with authority. I don't want to sit down and be told how to live my life. I don't want to sit down and hear the voice of God, which was always beamed to me when I was a kid. And so I'll just forget. I'll just not have time. Guys, if you have time to brush your teeth, you have time to meditate in the morning. And please tell me you are brushing your teeth. I have found ways that work for me. I have found that because of the life I live, I will be in and out of spiritual practice all day long. And that time when I sit my butt down in my prayer chair is still incredibly necessary for my well-being. And I offer you the suggestion, the opportunity now to take that time as a gift to yourself. You don't need to listen to the smitey God or think that when you sit down, all you got to hear is what's wrong with you and what you should be doing better. You can decide not to hear that. You can decide One of my favorite practices is as I breathe in, it's God is. As I breathe out, I am. All I hear is God is, I am. God is, I am. That's all you got to do. And if you can set a timer, there are many, many apps that will help you with this, that will give you music, that will give you guided meditation. There are so many good ways of doing this. I invite you to gift yourself with that time. I invite you to understand that it is your powerful spiritual practice that keeps that path clear, that makes sure that it's flattened out and you can see what's coming from a mile away. Because as you learn to slow down, as you learn to simply be, even just for 3 to 5 minutes in the morning, start there. What happens is your path becomes clearer. You learn how to see it. You learn how to hear it when you're hitting up against that side or you drive. We used to call it driving by braille, whatever those little thingies in the middle of the road are called, so that you hear it if you're drifting out of your lane. Those things. You will hear them better if you have a spiritual practice. And so I with all of my heart, I ask you to make today more than just a holy day for somebody else, more than just a long weekend type holiday. Starting today, make every day a holy day in which you come to the altar of love, which is within your own heart. And you gift yourself with the promise that you will, from this day, work on having that spiritual practice every single day. Now, I still have days I take off. Sometimes on my days off, those days don't happen because I sleep right through them, or I forget to get out of bed because I'm having a lazy day. If I don't officially do my spiritual practice, I will feel it. I will feel it the days that follow, especially if I try to coast for too long. But I will tell you that according to my Insight Timer app, I am now doing a specific spiritual practice at least 80% of the time. And so that is my gift to me, and I offer it to you as one of the ways to live a life that is powerful and good. One of the ways in which we get to live in the world that works for everybody. One of our spiritual practices that we all use, that is specific to religious science and that has been gifted to us, is prayer. A specific kind of prayer called affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment. What a practitioner does, and that's little p, which means anybody who does this stuff, what we're doing is going within, looking at our own consciousness. Where have we gotten into the habit of just accepting certain beliefs? And we are creating new neural paths. What we're doing is speaking to a greater truth. And so I invite you to join me in that process now. And so if it is yours to close your eyes, if you were sitting up and not sitting comfortably before, I invite you to get comfortable. And just come with me to the one mind, the race consciousness that we are now opening up as a space in which we are free, in which we recognize truth, in which the light is shining so brightly that there are no shadows left. We call this the Christ consciousness. We call this the cave of the heart in which we find our Buddha nature. We call this the place from which the Quran came to us. It is this time and space, this now moment, this eternal yes, that is the one mind. This is what some people call God. The experience of the energy of life, which is also the energy of love and wisdom and good. And because spirit has never been confused about the path, and we are part of, we live within spirit, it is surrounding us and it lives within us. This path is now clear for each of us. It's not the same path for everybody, but it leads to the same destination, which is it goes by many, many different names. Some people call it nirvana. Some people call it living in the light. Some people call it heaven, or the kingdom of God. No matter what, no matter what we're calling it, it's the same place. It's the place within our own hearts where love lives. Perfect love, powerful love. And in this moment, I declare a new day. I declare the celebration, a blessed day, a holy day, in which we recognize our path, which we recognize that we have been walking it all along. And now we choose to do it consciously. We choose to live in heaven now. Every step to heaven is heaven. It is this great freedom that the truth gives us. It is our freedom from the slavery to mistaken ideas, releasing those old false ideas. We stand here and now. I stand here and now in the absolute truth, that I know that it is good. I know that it is God, and there is nothing else to do except to keep our eyes on the path, to keep our eyes on what good is coming down the path for us. I celebrate and know that this is the truth of our being, that it is spirit that keeps redirecting our lives to that good, keeps redirecting that one mind into focus on that good. And what is ours to do is just keep our eyes on the good and allow the law to use its natural power to bring it into our physical world. I give thanks that this is what is ours to do, and we get to let go of everything else. I give thanks that spirit is, has been, and always will be, moving it all into form. I give thanks for this day, this life, these beautiful souls with whom I share this time. I call it all good and very good, and so it is.